Hello and welcome to another episode of my YouTube. Here we are this week talking about the mistakes that people make at their Italian weddings. I'm going to give you the rundown of the 5 most common mistakes I see made and how to make sure that you don't make them. Ciao, I'm Lucy, I'm an Italian wedding planner and I'm the founder of Lista.com, the website that's there to support you in your Italian wedding planning wherever you are in the world and whatever support you have. Let's get into it. These are the mistakes. First one is starting without a proper budget forecast. Now, it's boring. No one likes setting a budget. Not many people like talking about money, but if you start Italian wedding planning without a budget forecast, you are going to get into trouble. Starting without a budget is risky and it almost certainly means that you are going to spend more than you think you are. Don't just avoid this, we've got a free tool for you. So over on Lista.com, we'll link it below in the comments. There's a budget tracker that we've got where you can download it for free and populate it with your idea of your forecast. Now, this doesn't have to be perfect. Even if it's just a starter for 10, you will very quickly see how your wedding is going to add up and if you can have all of the things that you hope you can have. It gives you such a great tool for talking to people that may be going to contribute to your wedding. It gives you a good tool to talk to your fiance and show them how the money is going to be spent, because I think it's quite hard sometimes, especially for brides to have conversation with grooms, and grooms are very often the ones that kind of are more interested in the budget. Now, having a clear budget gives you a really good tool to be able to go through and show them why you need this total amount, what's everything that it's going to be spent on. Because once you break it down like that, you can see that actually there is value within this total pot of money. It's not just a huge sum of money that you're suggesting to spend. It also empowers you in supplier conversations because you know what you're hoping to spend and what on. So when your suppliers in the early stages are kind of negotiating with you or asking you what you want, especially your planner, you're able to give them quite clear guidelines. And finally, it means you're not going to overcommit early on. So the first couple of things that you book, your planner, your venue, you're not going to spend too much on those because you know you need the reserves later on for all of the other things that you want. I see often if someone doesn't have a budget, they get sucked into a certain venue that is way over their budget, they commit to that, and then they are committed the whole way through to higher spend because of that venue. You want to make sure that from the start you know exactly what you've got, so you're able to get the right venue at the right price and not overcommit yourselves way too early. The second thing I see people do is see too many venues when you're going to choose your venue and generally get overwhelmed. The first step people usually make is making a massive spreadsheet with loads of venues in, loads of venue data. Now, obviously you're going to want to do that, whoever you are, but I'd say the venues will never end. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of venues out there, and there's a reason that some of them come up time and time again. Now, some of it's good marketing, but in most cases it's because they are really good wedding venues. So you'll quite quickly know what you're playing with. I would recommend not building a list of hundreds and hundreds of venues because frankly you're going to go mad and a huge percentage of them are not going to be right for your wedding. Then we get on to the shortlist. So when you go over to Italy and look at venues, have a proper shortlist. You want to be seeing maximum 4 or 5 venues. There is no value in seeing 10 venues because again, most of them are probably not going to be right for you. You need to be ruthless with yourselves, get as much information as you can before you travel to Italy, so you know that the ones that you're going to see are the top ones, the most likely ones that you're going to book. Otherwise, again, you're going to get overwhelmed, you're going to get confused on your trip, seeing so many places, so much information, when you could just spend a bit more time with the ones that are really likely to be yours and really get a sense of them instead of rushing around with this kind of slightly hazy overwhelm. So do the prep before you go and make sure that you're going to get the one. You're more likely to come back with the one if you see less venues. Set your venue criteria, do your homework, get it all right up front. We've got another tool for this, the venue Ticklist, which is £11 in our shop. It has everything you need to think about when you're setting your venue criteria, so you can just have a really good venue shopping list and know all the questions you need to ask, all the things you need to think about, which again means that you're going to have a shortlist much more easily and more quickly, and it's going to shortcut you to the one. The third mistake I see people make, and something that I can do myself, a trap I can fall into as an English person, is avoiding asking questions. Now, we can all be a little bit more reserved than the Italians, and we can think it's impolite or it might cause a problem if we ask certain questions. This is not the role to be avoiding asking questions. You need to know everything, especially before booking a venue or a supplier. If you have questions, ask them. Now, it may put off some venues, it may put off some suppliers, but that means they're not right for you. If you have questions, you need to ask them to feel comfortable to be able to move forward. It's totally acceptable and it should be welcomed by most suppliers and venues. Don't settle for non-replies, don't settle for half your questions being answered, and don't be put under pressure. Now, I know it's really hard because there are sometimes time pressures. I've had another couple inquire with me, are you going to make your decision? We've had another couple inquire for the venue date, you need to make a decision. Literally, pick up the phone and speak to that supplier. You don't need to book a call, you don't need to find a convenient time for them. If you've got questions and you need them answered before you make your decision or book somewhere, just phone them. Usually everyone can speak pretty good English if that's what you're worried about, and just get the data you need. Do not shy away from it, because you're ultimately responsible for your decisions and you're going to be the one that suffers if later on you find out the answer to your question is not what you'd hoped it would be. Okay, the fourth thing is I see people getting married too early in the day. I know it's really hard. An Italian wedding starts later in the day, and that means that your whole wedding day is shorter than you might hope. But there's no way around this. You're having a wedding in Italy, it's likely to be very hot, and a ceremony before 4 p.m, if it's outside, is probably just going to be insufferable for your guests. Even at 4 p.m, if it's the height of summer, it is going to be very, very hot, and if they're in the sun, it is going to be really hard, and you should probably consider having an even later ceremony. It can be really tempting to have an earlier ceremony so that you've got a longer day, but the day just will not flow the right way. Firstly, you're going to have hot guests, they're going to get flustered, they're going to get sweaty, and that's not really going to set the tone for the rest of your day very well. Then when you start too early, the rest of the day doesn't flow. It means your dinner starts way too early, it's still hot when you eat, it's still light when you eat, and you might even start the party when it's still light. That is just not on. That is not going to happen at an Italian wedding. You really want things to flow really nicely with the atmosphere, the light. You've got to consider the catering hours and how they all flow. Having a later ceremony is just the thing to do. And think of it like this, if you're having other events, you've got lots of other time with your guests. It's not all about that kind of one afternoon and evening. So having a later ceremony means your wedding day goes really, really, really well, and you still have lots of time with your guests built around the wedding. We've got another download on this, so free timeline download over on Lista.com. Get it, have a look at it, see how the day flows, how much time you need for each portion of the day, and work this back to get to your ceremony time. There's also another video here on YouTube about building your ceremony time. The fifth mistake is having just one day of events. With budgets kind of being pinched everywhere, catering costs going up, it could be really tempting just to have your Italian wedding day. But don't do this, please don't do this. Have at least a welcome drinks where everybody goes to a bar and pays for their own drinks. You've got this magical opportunity where you've got everybody together, maybe for the only time in your lifetime where you have this group of people together. You really want to make the most of it, and getting them together the night before really breaks the ice and takes the tension away from you as well. You've already seen everyone, you've already spoken to them all. So please consider having a welcome event as well as your wedding day, even if costs are pinched. And I've got a bonus one for you. The sixth thing is, do not try and please everybody. You can't. With a destination wedding, you can absolutely feel extra pressure to please all of your guests. They're traveling for you, they're paying for flights, they're paying for travel. There's a lot going on for them, but you can't please everyone as much as you might try. The best thing you can do is have a really good plan for them. So when you're booking your venue, consider your guests. Consider how they're going to travel from the airport. Consider how they're going to get to your wedding and where they're going to stay. Those are the three things. If the distance from the airport isn't too far and you know there's good transfers, if there's good quality, good priced accommodation, and you've put on transport to get them to and from your wedding, you're off to the very best start in terms of pleasing your guests. And the second thing you need to do is have a really good comms plan for them. Make sure you're communicating with them at the right time, through the right channel for them, with the right information. So making sure that they know what's going on, they can have some support booking their accommodation, some support booking their travel. You're there with just the right level of support, but you're not doing absolutely everything for them, because that's almost impossible. You literally would need to hire like a travel agent. I absolutely love a guest-centric wedding, but you've got to define from the start what your boundaries are. So when you're building your budget at the start, if you're thinking I'm going to hire self-catering villa for my wedding, you've also got to put in some budget for food and drinks for your guests, because you might need things like a food shop, or you might want to put on breakfast for them. From the start, you've got to get those boundaries really clear, and you've got to know what that budget is, because that all goes into the decision making around what venue you're going to pick. You may have your venue costs, but on top of that, Each venue is going to dictate other lines in your budget like this: the food and drink, the transport to get guests to and from, how many people are going to stay, what contribution that is going to have back to your budget. And what I often see is if my couples have really well defined this at the start, they've really considered the venue that they're booking, they've put everything in the budget from the start, they know how they're going to support their guests, they know what communications they're going to send, they've got their boundaries clear, then they actually really enjoy the planning, and their guests do too, and they have a lot less admin to do because it's all been really clear from the start. So good luck. Don't make those mistakes. If you've got any comments or questions, just pop them below. Literally list them in the comments for me, and me and my team will answer them. And don't forget, we've got a Facebook group where couples are chatting about this stuff all the time, and me and the team are in there answering questions too. So head over to there. The link will be below as well. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me.